Good morning and Merry Christmas. Welcome to AOG. This is Armor of God Woodworks right here in Claxton, Georgia, and we build custom cabinets, custom furniture, entertainment centers. If it's made out of wood, we build it. So anyways, this is our assembly room. You know, it's a pretty good sized room. And I do want to say Merry Christmas. We have converted this place into Santa's workshop right now. We're trying to finish up a few last minute projects before the big day gets here. We are crunching deadlines right now. I do want to say that Christmas is about the birth of Jesus Christ, and we always need to remember that as we celebrate this season and we're with family and friends. We always remember that Jesus Christ is the reason that we celebrate Christmas. So anyways, with that being said, we'll get back to our little project we're doing here. So we got a set of kitchen cabinets that we're doing, and this is like down to the last one that we're doing. Just wanted you to see how we do our assembly here. And so it's a basic kitchen cabinet. We got a drawer opening right here, a couple of doors right here, and they're going to store like taller crab boiling pots, pretty much is what it's built for. So we're going to go ahead and put this thing together. You can see that we've already assembled the sides and everything, and we dado our ends in. We don't face nail. We blind nail through the side, but these are glued in and they're dadoed in, which means they're twice as strong as most cabinets you can get anywhere else. Why? Because we take pride in what we do, and we want it to be right, and we want it to last forever. So anyways, I got all my pieces cut, and we're gonna go ahead and slam this thing together real quick, and I'll try to keep talking as I'm building, and hopefully I don't shoot myself with a nail, but if I do, that would make a pretty good video. So sit tight and we'll get this thing put together. All right, we're gonna be using a couple of different tools today. This is our Metabo staple gun. It's one of the best staple guns that you can get, and for the price, it's really, you know, it's a no-brainer. But this is a very good nail gun. We don't have any problems with it sinking the staples, and so we just really like it when we're shooting our backs on and we're shooting our frames in and everything like that. This is a really good gun. It's a little Metabo HPT. You can get it at Lowe's. It's a pretty good little deal. And this is our Bostitch Smart Point. And it works really good for getting in those tight nooks and crannies that we get in these cabinets. And we're shooting a little variety of nails today. We're going to be shooting some 1-inchers. And we're going to be shooting some 1 1/4 inches. So you can see the difference. We got 1 inch over here, 1 1/4 inches here. And that way we don't shoot through all of our parts we got. And the staples we're using in this is 7/8. We got 1/2 inch plywood, shooting through 1/2 inch plywood. That way it won't come through the other side. And that's one thing you want to pay attention to when you're doing cabinets: your thickness of your material and your nails. You always want to make sure that whenever you swap nails out of your guns, you always want to make sure that you've cleared the magazine, because if you don't and you leave one tucked up in there around the head, and you're going to shoot right through your project you got going on there, and you really don't want that to happen. So anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to start out with our 1 inch. And we're going to be shooting our little piece in right here, and this is going to be where our bottom sets in on the face. So what we got is this piece right here is 1 7/16 inches. My bottom is 2 inches. My plywood's 1/2. That'll let my plywood sink down below the front about a 32nd to a 16th of an inch, and that way I've got just a little lip there. Don't want it to be flush, because if it is, you got another joint there, and if it's not exactly right and your plywood rises up or something, it's not going to look very good. So we'll get this piece, and it goes in just like that, and we'll start out with a little bit of Titebond 3, and you always want to make sure you use some good glue, and don't be afraid to use it. Titebond 3 is about the best thing as far as glue goes that you could use to pretty much put anything together, because it's waterproof. It's really tough. It sets up fairly quick, but it gives you enough time to work with it. So you don't have to really worry about something drying on you before you get ready. And one other good thing about glue is it gives you a little bit of lubrication between the wood. And that way, if you need to manipulate it, like, you know, if this something isn't quite perfectly straight, you can manipulate it down, and it makes it a lot easier because it kind of slip and slide on it a little bit. So you know, it's just, you learn stuff as you go and figure out what works and what doesn't. This is my subframe piece. It's 5.5 inches tall, which will get us 4 inches off the floor. And that'll make my total cabinet height be 34.5 for the kitchen. And once we get the countertop on, it'll finish off at 36 inches. So we'll go ahead and get these pieces. And I just line them up. And they're already cut to the width here. And so I cut them this width that's here. I cut this that width, and that way if the back's kind of out like this or in, it'll push it out and it'll make it all nice and even. It might not be perfectly square, but we'll square that up in a minute. So the first thing we're going to do is check center and get our little Empire adjustable square here. Mark that down. And always make sure you mark whichever side it's going to go on. That way you don't forget, because when you're doing all this stuff and you got parts flying everywhere, and you know, most of the time we got music going in here, and I don't right now so that you can hear me talking, but when you're listening to the music and you got stuff flying everywhere, you can very easily forget what you're doing. So these are the pieces that will make the rest of my frame, and they're the horizontal slats that we put in there. It helps you open your glue bottle. So the first thing we do is put this together and nail it in really well, because you don't want this part coming apart. Make sure you use glue. Like I said, you want to use glue on everything that you do. Make sure everything's good and flush. Don't be afraid to put nails in it. You definitely want to use the nails. And so we'll go to the other side and do the same thing. A little bit of glue. Flush it up, nail it in. It's a simple process. And the more you do, the faster it gets. We got one more right here. And we'll tuck that right in the middle. And so you can see that's the basic start of our structure. Flip it over, and you want to make sure that you flip it over and don't spin it around, because whenever you put this piece on the top, you want to make sure all your marks line up and you don't have something, you know, a little bit out of whack. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and glue these 3 uprights. Take this piece and set it right on top, just like that. Make sure everything's good and flush. Get right on your mark, pop that in. And this is a very important part to your cabinet build, because if anything is, you know, not flush or it isn't just right, it'll throw something off in the end. And that's not what we want. We want to start off right so we can finish right. All right, now that we got our structure built, our substructure, we'll take our framing square. It's a 2-foot framing square. And we'll put it right down on the face. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark up this side right here, because that'll let me know where that frame is supposed to sit. Come over here and do the same thing. Make sure your square's sitting flat everywhere. Put some pressure on it and scribe it. You never know what's going to happen when it's live TV. There we go. So I made this little spacer, and this spaces my my subframe up off of my workbench, and that way, you know, since I'm doing this by myself today, I can just set it down here and it'll prop it up until I get this thing fastened in. So I'm gonna switch guns, I'm gonna come back up. I'm gonna come over here to my stapler, hook it up, take my subframe, and I'm gonna sit it right down on my block, slide it in between my pieces there. And then what I want to do is make sure I'm flush here, and then I'm right on my mark. And you have to kind of be, might have to be a little bit acrobatic. You get it right, pop it in. Now I like to just come over here to this other side and go ahead and set it. You take your spacer block out. Go ahead and get down in here and let's get on our mark. Pop that in. We'll get on the other side, get on that mark. Pop that in, and then just go at it. All right, so now I got my basic structure built, and it's perfect. So this right here is 4 inches off the floor. You can see my gap, and I'll put my toe kick right here on the face, and I got plenty to nail into. And so now what we have to do is I've got a membrane that comes right up here. It comes right up here at the top, right there, and that's going to be my back nailer. So we'll go ahead and pop that in real quick. And so what I do is I just take a piece of scrap, 3 inches, it's 3 inches wide, and then however the width of this is. Swap our guns back over. Make sure we got 1 1/4 nails in. Get that glue out. Don't be scared to use the glue. Please don't be scared to use it. Just make sure you don't put so much on it that it's just running all over your project, because glue on stuff like this, and you're trying to paint and finish, and you don't really want to have to be messing around with that. So we're going to go ahead and pop that there, and we're going to add a few extra nails. I'm just setting it. Make sure we're good and flush top and back. And now just remember, this is going to be the piece that holds you to the wall. So you want to make sure you got plenty of fasteners in it, because once you put your 3.5 inch screws in there going into your studs and framing or whatever you got in the wall, you want to make sure that piece stays on there. That's one of the most important pieces. So now what we got left to do is we got to put the bottom in. We pretty much just go ahead and pre-rip everything, because I know how wide all of it's got to be from front to rear. Not sure about the lengths, so we just cut them as we go. But we go through and figure. The way to make this faster is to go in and figure like the width of this, go measure all your lengths, add them all together, and make sure that you've got enough material pre-cut so that whenever you start doing this, you don't have to stop and go reset your saw. And all. I mean, once you got that saw set, if you got to rip 3 sheets of plywood, it's faster just to go ahead and rip all 3 sheets right then. You might get a little tired or whatever, but just go ahead and do it, because you don't want to have to go back and reset the saw. And because it's me and my dad that work in here. And so if I'm doing something on the saw and, you know, I need 3 pieces, but I cut 1 and I'm going to go back and cut it later, if he goes and resets the saw, you know, then I got to reset it and all that stuff. And, you know, if you're off just a little bit, it can make a difference in the way your project looks. So go ahead and cut everything at one time and then come back and cut your lengths. It just makes for a much better project. It'll relieve stress in the shop, and it'll help you speed everything up and be very efficient. So I've got my width cut on this piece. I'm going to measure the length across here, which should be the length of all this stuff. It's 22 and 9. We'll cut that real quick. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test fit this, make sure it's good, perfect. Get some more of that glue out. You want to go across the front, and you want to glue every surface that's on your subframe. That way, whenever you get this joker mounted in there, you know, if you get somewhere and get it in a bind, it's not going to try to warp on you or anything like that. And this glue it just does wonders. It makes your project so much better. It never comes loose, and it's really great. So we drop this in, and the first thing you want to do is make sure that the plywood is pushed all the way to the front. Don't worry about what the back's doing. Just make sure you're all the way to the front, because if you do, then you can make sure that you get the cabinet good and square. So we're going to push this side up. Everything's good and tight. And you don't want to over nail this right here, because when you start in your finishing, you're going to have to come in and putty all these holes. So you don't want to run like 40 nails across here. 3 nails is sufficient for something like this. I always try to put one behind each one of these and then one right in the center. And even if I have like a 10-foot cabinet, I'll put one behind each vertical, and then, you know, come back in and pop one right in the center. That way you don't have a hump or something like that, and everything stays down nice and tight. So now that we see that, you know, everything's fitting good, we're gonna come down the side, and you want to nail that very well. Check the back. You want to make sure that you pull everything good and flush, because that's going to determine what the front of this cabinet looks like, if it's bowed or whatever. Like this one, my subframe was bowed just a little bit to the front. I pull it back, flush it with the back of the cabinet, pop it in, and we're good to go. If you nail it close enough to the back like I do, then whenever you come in and caulk, once you put the back of the cabinet on, once you caulk this joint right here, it'll cover those nail holes up, and you don't have to worry about it. I nail it very well down the sides. You don't want that coming apart, and you will have to come back and either putty or caulk. You know, these will all be painted white, so naturally all this will be, you know, it'll be caulked in, and so you won't see any cracks, no joints, no nail holes, no nothing. So anyways, that's a basic base cabinet. And I think it turned out pretty cool, and the way that our system's set up, it works really great. And so that's pretty much it. But anyways, that's how we do stuff up here. And, you know, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, and just, you know, follow the lumberjack, and we'll keep this train on the tracks as good as we can. But anyways, just Merry Christmas. And remember who Jesus Christ is, and remember what he's done for you. And we hope y'all have a great day. Hope you have a great season, and hope you get to spend as much time with your family as you can. Y'all have a good one.